So let's take a look at a new Bitcoin miner that's designed to also help you keep your coffee warm by repurposing the heat generated by the miner. And it's called the Mine Coffee by Gecko Science. And it can be used to warm up most any type of hot drink, whether it's hot coffee, hot chocolate, hot tea, or even double up as something like a scented candle warmer. It's available for sale now from Altair Tech, and as a bonus, you can use the coupon code VORTEX at checkout to save a couple bucks. And in this test and review, there's two main things I want to cover. Number one, how good of a miner is it? And number two, how effective is it at actually keeping our drinks warm? Now, to heat your coffee, under the hood, there's 4 BM1362 ASICs from the Bitmain Antminer S19J. It's rated to hash at up to 700 gigahashes per second at 23 watts, though the best that I've seen is around 500 gigahashes per second. And in practice, when it's warming your coffee, it's closer to 250 to 300 gigahashes per second. Now, this miner is going to be hashing away completely silently because there's no fan here. In fact, your coffee mug is effectively going to act as your heatsink and fan for the miner. Now, taking a closer look at the design, we've got an aluminum heat plate here on top that's textured to kind of help hold your coffee in place. Around the bottom, we've got some walnut trim. And then on the front of the display, it can show you a number of different things. So it can show you, of course, the temperature here of that hot plate as it's warming your coffee. You can also have it update the Bitcoin price here in real time. It'll also show you the current hash rate of the miner, which does go up and down. And then you can also have it show you the current balance as far as how many sats are in the Bitcoin wallet that you're currently mining to. So if you happen to hit a block, it can also show you that as well. And then also it can optionally display things like the time and IP address of the miner as well. Then taking a closer look at the face here, you can see we've got these two buttons. They're going to allow you to adjust the temperature of the hot plate. It's going to go all the way down to 35 degrees Celsius or all the way up to 55 degrees Celsius max. There's also going to be some LEDs that are wrapped around the bottom that can be configured to display in different colors and different blinking effects. On the back, it's actually powered by USB Type-C, so you can plug it in like that. And it's also going to come with the fast USB charger plug that you'll need as well. In terms of power draw, I find it can pull maybe 18 to 19 watts, or sometimes as high as 21 to 22 watts. There's also Wi-Fi installed here under the hood, though it's 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi only. There's no 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. There's also no on-off switch installed in the miner as well. So it's designed to kind of run continuously. And if you do want to turn it off, you're just going to have to unplug the power cable here from the back of the miner. Now, to set up the miner, you can type its IP address here into a web browser, and that's going to bring up the configuration page here for the Mine Coffee. Now, starting off, this first section is going to be for the mining pool that you want to use. So you can choose the pool right here. You can also type in the Bitcoin address, where in case it winds up hitting a block and you get the full Bitcoin reward, what Bitcoin address you'd like to receive the Bitcoin at. You can choose a unique name here for this specific miner, especially in case maybe you've got multiple devices all mining here to the specific Bitcoin address. That way you can tell kind of the stats for each individual device. You can choose a password if necessary. A lot of mining pools don't actually need that. And then scrolling down, we can also adjust the temperature of that hot plate anywhere between 35 to 55 like we saw before. You can switch between Celsius and Fahrenheit. And then to configure that OLED display, you can choose the currency that you'd like to display the current Bitcoin price. You can have it show that Bitcoin price or not, and then you can adjust all these different options. As you can see, I have it disabling the options to show the time and IP address, but you can of course turn any of the stuff on and off as you wish. The front buttons there, you can turn those on and off as well. And then scrolling down to the last option, that's going to be for the LEDs on the very bottom of the miner. You can choose what color you want, what level of brightness you'd like here for those LEDs, what kind of like blinking pattern or effect you'd like. You can see there's a bunch of different options. You can also finally choose the speed of the blinking pattern as well. It's also worth noting that it doesn't look like there's any options here to update the firmware of this miner. And it also doesn't have some options such as if you want to input multiple different mining pools. So maybe in case like your primary pool goes down for whatever reason, maybe you want a backup pool. There's no option to enable like a second or even third backup mining pool if needed. Next, let's take a look at one of the most important questions, which is, well, how good is it at actually keeping our coffee warm in the first place? Well, to test this, I actually used a couple different types of mugs. And what I would do is I would pour a fresh hot cup of coffee, and then I would take a thermal camera like this, and every 5 minutes, I would point it at the coffee and just note down the hottest temperature and just log that down in a spreadsheet. Then after that first control test, I would repeat the test with the mug sitting on the miner/heater and see how much of a difference that I noticed. Now, starting off here first with just your traditional ceramic coffee mug, I found that the heater doesn't make all that much of a difference for the first 15 to 20 minutes or so, which is when I'm typically drinking my coffee. That said, if I let it sit longer, that's when I start noticing more of a difference. And I start seeing more of a temperature separation after about 20 to 30 minutes or so. And then after a full hour, instead of dropping by 36 degrees Celsius, the heated version dropped only 31 degrees Celsius. And so this heater ultimately wound up keeping my coffee 5 degrees warmer after an hour. Now, honestly, 5 degrees isn't a ton. I was hoping for a bit more, and I was wondering if maybe these ceramic mugs are kind of insulating and we're not getting good heat transmission from the heater into the coffee. And so for that reason, I decided to repeat the test with a metal mug that would allow me to transfer the heat way better. Now, with the metal mug, there's no insulation, and so when I pour the coffee, I can instantly feel the heat of the coffee on the outside of the mug. And repeating this test, this time things did work a little bit better. Now, the starting temperatures for my coffee were a little bit lower this time around, but nevertheless, I had a similar experience this time around with not a huge difference initially. And that actually makes sense given the fact that the coffee actually starts off hotter than the heat plate itself. And this time around, after an hour of heating, instead of dropping by about 28.5 degrees Celsius, the heated mug only dropped by about 19.5 degrees Celsius. And so this heater ultimately helped to maintain an additional 9 degrees of heat in the coffee compared to about 5 degrees with the ceramic mug. So as expected, it actually worked a little bit better here with the metal mug. Now, after an hour, the temperature of the coffee inside the mug was about 41.5 degrees Celsius or 105 degrees Fahrenheit. And at that temperature, things were okay. I mean, they were maybe lukewarm or a bit warmer. I personally wasn't a huge fan of the coffee at that temperature, but I know some people might prefer coffee that's cooler than I do. Then out of curiosity, I also repeated the test with an insulated coffee mug that's literally designed to keep your coffee warm over time. And no surprise, this actually performed way better. And looking at the chart, the line in yellow is going to be the insulated mug. The red line, that's the heated metal mug. And as I mentioned before, it does start at a lower temperature. So my test here isn't exactly perfect, but nevertheless, the main thing to pay attention to is the temperature drop off over time. And you'll notice that with the yellow line, the insulated mug actually does a much better job of maintaining the hot temperature over time and not letting the temperature decrease too much over time either. And with this insulated coffee mug, it only lost 7 degrees Celsius over time, and I suspect a lot of that is just due to the fact that, well, I kept taking the lid off every 5 minutes to do my temperature measurements, and so in practice it might even be better than that. So 7 degrees Celsius here with the insulated mug, compared to 19 degrees Celsius here from the heated metal mug, and then 31 degrees Celsius lost here with the heated ceramic mug. And so long story short, yes, I do see some improvements here with your traditional coffee mug, but if you use something like this is actually going to perform way better at a fraction of the price. And so with that said, let's take a look at the mining aspect next. Now, in terms of your typical hash rates, your mileage may vary, of course, but I find that with the heater set to full blast, I'm typically seeing hash rates between 200 to 300 gigahash per second. The best that I've seen is maybe 500 or up to 600 gigahash per second, but that's very rare. Only sometimes like if I first turn it on and it's really kind of heating up and warming up, but otherwise in practice, it's not going to be maintaining that level of hash rate. Now, to try and get higher hash rates, I was really curious to see what would happen if I put improved cooling on top of the miner. Your coffee mugs like this, they're going to have hot coffee inside, so what if instead we put maybe like a cold drink? And then we use something like the metal mug and we fill it with ice water. So we get like a really cold heatsink to put on top. And then on top of that, what if we put some thermal paste onto the miner as well to help improve the heat transmission between the heat plate and the ice water? Well, it turns out this cooler was actually pretty effective. And even with the miner set to full blast, designed to heat up to 55 degrees Celsius, the cooler drove down the temperature of that heat plate down to the low to mid 30s, which was very nice. That said, I still saw the hash rate of the miner sitting right around 250 gigahashes per second, nothing anywhere near the 700 gigahash range. Now, I did notice after finishing the test that the distribution of thermal paste on the bottom of the cup wasn't ideal. In retrospect, maybe it would have been better to actually apply it here to the bottom of the mug itself and not onto the heat plate itself. But nevertheless, I mean, it was driving the temperatures down into the lower 30s. And it was really effective either way. And this is not really a realistic test. Like, nobody would do that in practice. It's kind of an over-the-top test to try and really get it to work harder. And so nevertheless, yeah, I didn't really actually see the hash rates that I was hoping to see. And so in practice, I find that this mined coffee isn't all that great of a Bitcoin miner, and it's also not that great of a coffee heater either. Now, it works, don't get me wrong, but I think in practice it's more of like a fun toy. It's a cool conversation piece. It retails for $2.99, and at that price you could alternatively order yourself a Bitaxe, which is going to give you about 4 times the hash rate at almost half the price. Now, to be fair, a Bitaxe obviously doesn't let you repurpose the heat to keep your coffee warm or something, but you can also just pick up an insulated coffee mug and wind up pocketing the difference with all the savings compared to the Mine Coffee. So it's a cool idea, but maybe not the best value for the money. And don't get me wrong, I love seeing people experiment with different ways to repurpose the heat from Bitcoin mining. There's people using the heat to heat their home. I've seen people using it to heat their swimming pool. Others use it to heat their spa. I've seen people use it to heat their patio and melt snow. In Finland, they're heating 80,000 homes using the heat from Bitcoin mining. And so there's a ton of really awesome use cases for repurposing the heat from mining, and I love seeing people continue to experiment with this. It's just that with this particular miner, I kind of wonder if maybe it's a better idea in theory than in practice. And I've been wondering if maybe the issue is the fact that a lot of these ceramic mugs are kind of insulated, so we don't get really good heat transfer from the heater into the coffee. But even if you take a look at something like a metal mug, this works better, but still kind of leaves me wanting. It's also worth noting that the heater is going to be heating the coffee from the bottom, but when I'm doing my measurements and testing, I'm actually measuring the top of the coffee, which may see less benefit from the heater compared to the bottom. That said, in practice, when I'm drinking my coffee, I'm kind of sipping from the top like that, so that is the part that I'm most curious about. If you're the type of person who maybe drinks coffee from a straw, I don't judge, but maybe you would see more benefit from something like this if the bottom of the coffee does indeed get a little bit warmer than the top. I've also wondered if maybe the heater needs to get warmer than 55 degrees Celsius, which is already pretty hot. And on that note, I've noticed some issues with Wi-Fi connectivity here at home. Most of the time when I boot up, it has a lot of issues connecting to my Wi-Fi, and it goes through this boot loop process where it's really struggling to boot up and then just continues to boot loop until eventually it can connect to my home Wi-Fi. And something that I've noticed only once so far, this is not common, but one time I did notice it would actually heat up to 70 degrees Celsius while it was doing this boot loop. And this is much hotter than 55 degrees Celsius. It's too hot to actively touch and keep around. And so I do have my concerns if they want to go higher than 55. And I'm also wondering if maybe there's some issues where some of the controls of this heater are not activated if it's stuck in a boot loop or something. I don't know if that's something exclusive to me or if other people are experiencing it either, but that is something that I've noticed in practice as well. But either way, I think this Mine Coffee is a pretty cool idea. I just think it's a little bit lacking on the execution side for whatever reason. And so if you want to pick one up, it's a cool conversation piece for sure. It's just not that great of a miner, and it's just not that great of a coffee heater. But it does still work, and you can repurpose it for other things like keeping your hot chocolate a little bit warmer or using it as a scented candle heater or something. I totally get it, but it's not as good as I was hoping. So anyways, that's my thought here on this Mine Coffee. If you've got one, I'd love to hear your experiences as well, good or bad, and we can compare notes. Just let me know down in the description below. And if finally you enjoy videos like this, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can get notified as new Bitcoin videos go live as well. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you're all doing great, and I'll see you in the next one.